Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to discuss something that kind of dropped like a bombshell on Sunday night. And I didn't really talk about it yesterday because I kind of wanted to let it gestate for a day and see if anything else kind of developed with it. But it doesn't seem too much. It seems like it's kind of just what it is. And that is Ricky Gervais's Golden Globe speech opening the ceremony, and I believe he was also the host. And that thing was goddamn amazing. Um, and as expected, he's getting a lot of flack from it. He's not. But the thing is, he's a comedian. I've gone over this kind of before. Is the idea that comedy kind of operates on the edge of what we consider to be decency. Comedy should be dirty and horrible and shocking. That kind of adds to the factor of how that humor actually hits you. Now there are some things that are irreverently funny, but for the most part, the stuff that he was doing was shock humor, and it was so hilarious because he starts the whole thing out as that he doesn't care. It's like his last time at these awards, and he just doesn't care. He just wants to go out as ballsy as possible. I don't believe that entire thing was scripted. Um, at least from the perspective of the people that were putting on the show knew that he was going to do this. I don't think that at all. I think if you're going up on stage and you're calling Judi Dench dressing up, saying that Judi Dench dressed up like a pussy, nobody would have greenlit that. That's something that you hear at like a Comedy Central roast, not something you hear on network television on a Sunday. And the thing is that Ricky Gervais, and it's kind of the attitude that I think the comedy community is getting into now. Is the thing that for the most part that comedy is going to fight back against this kind of political correct nature that has been developing more prevalently over the last 15 to 20 years. It started out with certain things in the 90s, but then over like the last 15 to 20 years, it's been really progressively getting worse and worse. And when they went after Dave Chappelle, that was a big thing. A lot of comedians came out and said, screw you. And they've gone after other people too. They've got some people have come out in defense of uh, Louis C.K. After his Me Too stuff came out, and there's a lot of people that have been coming out of the woodwork, kind of trying to defend their friends in the comedy community. And with this is just kind of that whole thing where the comedy community kind of crosses over into the mainstream acting community, because they're very, very different. Even though you have comedians that do comedy and also act, a lot of it is kind of split down the middle. They're two different worlds of entertainment, and Ricky Gervais kind of took that world of that dirty, sleazy comic in that side club, somewhere on like a dimly lit street, and he put that guy in the Golden Globes doing the opening announcements. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see. The expressions in the crowd were great. I love the people just reacting with just like, oh my god, Tom Hanks looked like he was going to crap himself. It was hilarious to kind of see saying that Martin Scorsese is too short to go on amusement park rides. There was so much stuff in there just ripping the Hollywood community. He dropped an Epstein didn't kill himself reference in the middle of the monologue. And then everybody kind of groaned and he says, I don't care if he was your friend. And it's just so pertinent. It was so funny. It was so shocking because it needed to be. It stood out. I do think this will probably be Ricky Gervais's last time at the Golden Globes, at least as a host. I don't think they'll let him near a microphone. If he ever goes back, I don't think they'll let him near a microphone after this. But this was something that I think needed to happen, and it needed to happen on a big stage. I don't think it's going to happen at the Oscars because that stuff is just, there's too much on the line for that. But something like the Golden Globes, or like the Saturn Awards, or even like something like the Emmys or something like that, having somebody get away with this, I think is plausible. And obviously, we've seen that Ricky Gervais has done it. And it's again, it's one of those things that it needed to happen on that type of a stage so that people could kind of see the new assholes being ripped. Because it's not the same deal as like when you follow somebody on Twitter or something like that and they post something out. It's like, oh, maybe it'll hit the evening news. Like, no, this is a major event that's being watched by millions upon millions of people. And Ricky Gervais just ripped Hollywood a new one, and it was so funny. Uh, I think this is humor fighting back. This is the Hollywood community. This is more specifically the comedy community in Hollywood, kind of fighting back against those politically correct notions. And I think that's a good thing in the long run because ultimately, we've seen a lot of backtracking by Hollywood on the inclusivity and the feminism angle and stuff like that. Ghostbusters is a prime example where the Ghostbusters 2016 film was god awful. It lost Sony a butt ton of money, but they chose to go forward anyway, and now they're making an actual sequel to the original two Ghostbusters films instead of a reboot. And basically, what the fans were originally asking for in the first place is kind of coming to fruition and coming on, as opposed to 2016, where a lot of it felt very soulless and it felt like a cash grab, and Sony was not in a good place that year either, with a lot of bad films that were coming out from them between 2016 and 2017. There was a lot going on when it came to when that film came out, but the purpose is that Hollywood had that's a huge backtrack from trying to push the all-female Ghostbusters angle. And Star Wars has done the same thing. They've tried to course correct with Rise of Skywalker, even though it's not a good film. You can tell that they were going back on a lot of the things that they were trying to do with the previous films. And I think you're seeing a return, maybe not a full return, but the start of some kind of return to normal entertainment with the Hollywood machine, all the studios and stuff, is that the actors are still going to virtue signal, they're still going to do whatever, but the purpose is the media that is put out, as long as that is of good quality and continues to kind of maintain its good quality. Again, you've seen other things that have been happening over the past few years that Hollywood has been kind of backtracking. They've been canceling things, and people are starting to realize that idea of get woke, go broke. The idea that if you start, it's starting to sink in because they're seeing more and more around them of people just losing money, left and right with some of these films that they're films that have budgets of over $200 million, and yet some of them are flopping. Stuff like Solo and things like that. People have been kind of seeing that stuff now, and the public notices that too. Especially when big tentpole films do not perform. That's huge news. It's huge entertainment. Huge entertainment news. Look at Cats. It was a $97 million movie, and the thing literally, I think, made less than $10 million in its opening weekend. I think it made 6 point something, and that might be worldwide for all I know. But even if it's domestic, that's still terrible with a movie that needs to make about $200 million just to break even. But people are starting to realize that it's not a profitable road to go down, and ultimately in Hollywood, money will trump virtue signaling and messaging, because that's the bottom line. Everybody in Hollywood wants to be rich. You kind of have to be rich now to live in California, unless you're a hobo. But it's the idea of being rich. They're not going to keep. They know that if they lose enough money, that businesses and stuff can go under and heads can roll. They're not stupid. At least the financial people, the studio people, they're not stupid. The actors might be dumb, but the people behind the scenes are not necessarily stupid. And they can see when there's a downward trend. And really, I think what you're going to be seeing in probably the next 3 to 5 years is a big kind of resurgence back to kind of like a backlash to how far Hollywood has kind of pushed their narrative so far. You kind of have an equal and opposite reaction, where you're going to see a lot of those kind of more classically themed stories come out. Stuff like The Mandalorian, stuff like Ghostbusters Afterlife, things like that. You're going to see a drastic return to what we would consider to be normal entertainment, I think. It may not get entirely back to what it was. There's going to be a few of those films and stuff that sneak in there every once in a while. But I think we're kind of on the home stretch of maybe entering into a bit of a recovery period for Hollywood, which would definitely be a good thing after the last 5 to 10 years of just endless sequels and remakes. We're probably going to still get that stuff, but at least it's not going to be hammered with all the allegory that it has now. Maybe that's something to look forward to. Now, to be fair, these programs might not be the start of a trend. They just might be diamonds in the rough, and this shit might get worse. Who knows? But it's nice to kind of see those things every once in a while, just to give you a little bit of hope. But I want to know what your opinion is. Do you think that Ricky Gervais's Golden Globe speech has greater meaning in terms of bringing Hollywood back from the brink of the politically correct culture that our country is in now, or the United States is, because in case I'm talking to people that are outside of the United States. But do you think that maybe this is going to signal some kind of a change in Hollywood, or do you think that maybe it was just a funny thing and and it'll just be swept under the rug in a week and people will be right back to what they're doing? I want to know what your opinion is on Ricky Gervais's Golden Globe speech. And by the way, I will link the video, the full 8-minute opening monologue, in the description below if anybody would like to watch it. But again, tell me your thoughts. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?